Good evening. Welcome to the PoliticIt podcast. We've got Ari Ioannides with us today, and you're a candidate for the county council in
That's correct.
Park City, Summit County.
Summit County Council, seat C.
Seat C, okay.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about you. I mean, I kind of like to talk just about the candidates and kind of what your background is, just so people get to know you.
Wow. So my kind of big story is I'm a technology entrepreneur, and I came up back, right around 2000 with the idea of having governance packets. When you're at the county or city or school board level, you get these big packets, 300 pages. And the idea was that those were all being distributed by hand.
Right.
And they were like this. They're bad for the environment, not good. So we decided that wouldn't it be cool if it was online? And this is before they were. Now it's commonplace.
Yeah.
So I developed a product called Board Docs as a service. We sold it all over the country. It was well adopted here in Utah as well as just about everywhere else. It was transformative. We became Kleenex in that market, especially for school boards. We had about 3,500 school boards when I sold it to a company called Diligent.
Oh, Diligent.
Yeah, so everyone knows Diligent now.
Yeah.
But when I sold it,
And what was the name of this?
Board Docs.
Board Docs.
Right. And it's a really small team, highly functional. We had an NPS score that was higher than Apple's, and we were able to deliver these things. And by the way, 100% of our employees worked from home back then.
Oh, wow.
Before the pandemic.
Yeah,
So
before.
yeah. And we had a less than 1% attrition rate every year. So
So
really
when
good
was
product.
this? What was the time period?
This was from about 2000.
So this was just as the internet was taking off.
Right. And no one was doing cloud-based stuff. We were. you
Yeah.
know. And it was hard to raise money because people thought, oh, no, you want to put servers, in the location. We
Right.
didn't do that. It was all in the cloud. So,
You basically had to build your own cloud at that time.
we did,
right?
yes. We had our own service center, and then we separated to two, and we used servers that were very efficient. But by the time I sold it to Diligent about 8 or 9 years ago, I had pretty much moved to Park City and really enjoyed the lifestyle there, but was fully engaged in the community. So one of the first things I did was work with Summit Community Power Works to do a bulk rooftop purchase program that lowered the cost of solar for about 20%. Then I worked with someone who people in Park City know pretty well. Mo Hickey. We were on the Park City Education Foundation together, and at that time they were raising roughly $350,000 or so a year. We bumped that up to $1 million.
Wow.
Executive committee, yeah. And we also implemented. I charged with a great lady, Abby Funabiki. We took all their records and put them online, so you had a donor management system. I'm a tech.
Yeah.
And then
So were you a developer too? Or?
I actually wrote software.
Oh, did you?
So, and here's the cool thing.
So that's kind of my background.
Oh,
too.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
So I wrote software. I learned how to write. The first programming language I learned was APL, which
Okay.
is kind of a scientific language on an IBM
Yeah,
360.
of course, yeah.
I was on a mainframe. This was cool. And we learned it in high school as part of a pilot program that the Atlanta Public Schools was putting out to teach kids how to code.
Okay.
Now, our teachers didn't know how to do this. They basically gave us the manual, the same one NASA uses, and they said, learn how to do. So the upperclassmen would teach everyone else. By the time I graduated, there were about 30 kids in this class, and it was a real class. Women, boys, girls, black, white.
This was in high school?
Yeah,
Okay.
interracial school. So then I went to college, and they got us punching cards and
Yeah,
stuff,
right.
Fortran and Pascal and all
Right.
that. But I already knew how to code.
Right.
So when I sold my business, right at the end, I was in Washington speaking to school board administrators. And they said, they had a space. This is one of those things that changes your life. They had a space where a speaker was supposed to speak but didn't show up. So the executive director comes, hey, would you go up there and just say a few words to the group? I said, sure. Mm-hmm. So I challenged these educators. These are superintendents and school board members. I said, you're teaching coding. you're teaching languages, multiple languages. You're teaching music, but you're not teaching code, which
Right.
is probably, as you know,
Right.
the most prevalent language that sits here and could break the cycle. They said, well, how do you do that? I said, well, you teach it like anything else in elementary school. They're like, how do you do that? Our teachers don't know how to code. I'm like, yeah, they're not Pulitzer Prize winning novelists either, but they're teaching kids how to read.
Yeah.
So what I did was
And right.
and right. So we found a program in Arizona where they were teaching elementary school full-time classes how to code using, mostly visual aids.
Right.
We adopted that, piloted it in Park City. When I sold my company, we invested a 10% of the revenue that we got into this organization, which became Boot Up. We have now touched 1 million students, mostly in inner city schools, and they're learning how to code. And here's a great thing. Not only are they learning how to code, they're doing better in every single subject because they're learning critical thinking, how to work together,
how to break things down into their basic components,
build on each other's work. You know what that's called in school right now? Cheating.
Yeah.
And then the big thing is, and you write code, and it's never right the first time, right?
Right.
So you have to debug it.
Right.
When they do that, they've learned grit. So again, my math is wrong. No problem. I'll just debug that instead of, I'm a failure. I can't do math.
Right.
So I am really proud of that program. Now it's Amazon Future Learners. It's gotten a lot of results, and
so they're still doing that.
They're still doing that. I'm on the board. I keep trying to say, look, I need to step down, but I'm still there. Anyway, so that's one of the other things I did.
So you grew up in Atlanta?
Yes.
Okay, and then where did you go to the university?
Georgia Tech.
Okay.
And Georgia State.
Oh, very good. And was your degree in?
I dropped out of school.
Oh, did you?
To start my first business, yeah.
Oh, kind of like Mark Zuckerberg, huh?
Bill
Gates?
Exactly like Bill Gates. No. But yeah, I had the entrepreneurial bug, and I definitely am a college.
So what brought you to Park City?
I was Park City School District wanted to use board docs, and I came. This was back when there were 3 of us in the company. They were an early adopter, and I came and we talked to them about it. And I was sitting there on Main Street at one of the restaurants, going, "Man, this place is nice. The schools are good. It's a great place to live." My kids were in a place where it was all about who you were, what kind of car you drove, and I wanted to get away from that. And Park City's down to earth. So about 20 years ago, I moved here.
Wow. And how long ago did you sell this company?
Oh, it's been about 9 years now.
9 years.
Yeah.
Oh. So now you're kind of looking for another adventure. What got into you to want to run for office?
Well,
it's a tough business to be in.
Yeah, I say there's a lot of smart people in Park City doing a lot of great things, and most of them don't run for office because, as you know, I should have called you. It's hard, you know, and it's hard on your mental health, and it takes a lot of work, especially at the county level. But I think the end game is so important. There's a lot I have to give, the perspectives I have and what I've learned, the ability to work through data. And I'll tell you what was the defining moment for me. I was called by Roger Armstrong. The Park City, the North Summit Fire District had kind of fallen apart. Basically, someone was in a life-threatening situation. They called 911 and a responder didn't show up.
Oh, wow.
Which is the worst thing that can happen.
Right.
Response times were still over 30 minutes. It wasn't good. All volunteers. And they were good people, but the structure...
This is the Summit County.
North Summit Fire
North
District.
Summit.
Right. So council shut it down, and they brought Park City. They contracted with Park City to fill in. And I get a call from Roger that says, we've got to spin up a fire district. You're a turnaround guy. You did it at Park City Institute. Would you come give us a hand? I said, well, I really don't know. Let me think about it. So he calls back about an hour later. I need a decision by tomorrow. I said, I haven't talked to my wife. Give me another second. Then I get a call from Chris Robinson, another council member. Ari, we really need you to do this. So I did it. I don't know anything about running a fire district, but I am a data person. And it was literally like drinking from a fire hose. Hired a full-time chief, great guy. Started doing policies and procedures, hired up new people. And then at one point, they wanted to say how many fire stations we would need for. And I'm like, that sounds like a lot. What's the data behind that? Well, we really don't have it, but no, we think 4 works. I said, well, can I get all the call data for 2 years? Can I get where all the structures are, tax records for our fire? And then I built this map, and you know how to do this,
right? Yeah.
And you could zoom in and zoom out, and every point was a call or where someone been. And then we said, okay, if we have a fire station here and here.
Yeah, you can start seeing the patterns just by putting the data on the map, right?
Yeah. And I brought that map in. He said, how long did it take you to do this? I said, I don't know, hour and a half, like, really? So we zoomed in and out. The good thing about it was on council, instead of the $4 million that was first proposed, we were able to produce 2 fire stations, $2.1 million. So, we saved a lot of money. And Roger Armstrong looks over at me. He was on the board and says, we need this on council. We need that. I said, well, you really can't afford me. Data analysis is not. And, over time, I realized if I could make that kind of impact there, I could really do it at the county level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Hey, we're going to take a break.
Yes.
We'll come right back.
Great.
Hi, I'm Ari Ioannides, and I'm running for Summit County Council. I've lived here for nearly 20 years, and I've seen the changes we all face. Rising living costs, traffic, and the pressures from growth. My goal is to protect our open space and find real balanced solutions that keep Summit County vibrant and affordable for all residents. I'm not here to push a personal agenda. I'm here to listen, collaborate, and get things done. Let's work together for a better future. For more information, visit voteforari.com.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. We've got Ari Ioannides with us today, the candidate for county council at large seat, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we've been talking a little bit. I mean, we just talked about, budgets, the financial side. It sounds like with your background and your focus on data and other things, it seems like that there's probably a need for that.
There is, and I think one of the biggest issues that I hear from constituents, and you're hearing this in your race too, is taxes.
Right.
And even though the valuations of the houses have gone up, we're getting more tax revenue, so people are paying more in taxes.
Right.
And one of the issues for me is when I look at the budget over 5 years, it's grown twice the rate of inflation. Why is that? And we keep hearing about the need for more taxes and to grow staff, but I never, ever hear anyone on council, once again, great people, stand up and say, how can we work on efficiencies? How can we deliver services better to the constituents? How can we raise the level of customer satisfaction around the delivery of those services? And we're in a resort town. We know how to do this, right?
Right.
So we have 5-star resorts. We have the hospital, Intermountain Park City, which I'm on the board of. We deliver constantly some of the best services, top 1 or 2% in the country. Guess what? Our bottom line's also better. If you are good at delivering your services, and we know this as businessmen, it means you're doing it more efficiently and you're having to redo things less often. So as a result, you're spending less money to deliver those services. And I haven't heard that yet. Denver does a really good job with the Peaks program, and I think we can bring some of those elements in to help stand our staff up because they're really good. Right now, they're kind of in silos. They're not talking to each other. There's some duplication. They're not using technology as well as they could. And a council person can't do those things on your own, but you can direct the county manager to start measuring things that would lead to those types of changes.
Yeah. So tell me, you talked just a little bit about the school tax and senior citizens, and I thought that was kind of interesting when we were on break.
My dad's 91, 92. He comes and visits all the time, and where he lives in the county, and this is not a strange thing. If you're over a certain age and you've lived there for a certain time and you're a primary residence, you no longer pay school tax, right? In Summit County, that's 55 to 60% of your property tax. And if we want our older population to age in place, and we do, one of the things we need to do is drop the level, some of their living expenses. And I think a big one would be the school tax. So I have this crazy idea, if you're over 75, if you've lived in your house or lived in the community more than 10 years with it being your primary residence, you don't have to pay.
Yeah, and you can adjust that number,
you
right?
can sure adjust it. You can have 5 or whatever. And what that now, we don't want people from California or Texas
that are just there part-time,
retiring part-time, right? And they live in a $5 million, well, that's nothing now, $10 million house up in Deer Valley. We don't want them to get a tax break, but we certainly want the people who built this community, who have those stories, who are the fabric of what we do, to live there. And not only should they live there, but they should be able to retire there. And when they no longer can live in their homes, we don't have a senior center up there where people can live. They have to leave their community. And for people with memory issues, that's a big deal. So that's a priority for me, is to make sure that we're treating our seniors. Yeah.
So another issue, and I just thought about this. I mean, you're running as a Republican,
right?
In a pretty strong Democrat area.
Yeah, and another point that my opponent should pick up on, I'm obviously not very smart, because a Republican there's no Republicans who've been elected who are currently sitting on the county. There's 12 countywide seats. None of them are held by Republicans. They're all Democrats. And honestly, much of what happens at the county level is not partisan, so it's not a huge problem.
Right.
But I will tell you, there's two things. Number one, most of the east side of the county, as you know, is Republican. Most of the people on county and who are running things are from Park City. So there's an idea that liberal Park City people are running the county. I don't know if it's 100% true, but people on the east side feel that way, and they don't have a voice. And I think I can be that voice. I live on the east side. I live in Wanship. The other thing is, we have to have regional collaboration. You and I have had many conversations.
Right.
We need to be able to go down to the State House and speak on common terms with common language where we're not attacking each other away from our silos and our constituencies. And I think as a Republican, it would benefit the entire community, including those,
to be able to have positive relationships with the legislature.
And you've had Blake Moore, Congressman Moore sit here. I'm a friend of Blake's. He's been to my house. I know his wife. I know his kids. We can go to Washington and advocate for the things like open space that are really important to us, that people on both sides of the aisle really care about. And a Republican has a head start, and I'll do that for the community. So I think, that's not the main reason I ran as a Republican. The reason I ran as a Republican is because my mom would come up out of her grave and slap me silly if I ran as a Democrat, because during the 60s, she was elected to the Atlanta Public School Board of Education as a Republican. And what she wanted to do was, this is during desegregation, she wanted to make sure, as an immigrant Greek, that the desegregation of the schools was peaceful. And the people who were working against that were all these Dixiecrats. They were Democrats.
Right.
You think Lester Maddox, Strom Thurmond, once again, they were on the wrong side of this. Well, my mom, as a Republican, worked with the black leaders, specifically Dr. Mays, who was Martin Luther King's teacher, to peacefully do this. It was a great experience for the kids. And and the funny thing is, when she ran again, they called her a John Bircher, just because she was a Republican.
Right.
My mom didn't have a racist bone in her body, right? I remember being a little kid, the KKK was in a parade, believe it or not. It's the Deep South. Yeah. And I said, who are these people? Son, they hate you because you're Greek. So I'm honoring my mother's legacy. Yeah, and representing the people.
Well, you made an important point, and often, one of the things I think people don't understand is there's a big Republican push for local control of things.
Oh yeah.
That was my big complaint on the Dakota Pacific thing, that I've actually worked pretty hard to stop. But the real issue there is, we should have local control of those types of issues, right? And just by couching these things in the right terms, you have a lot better cooperation.
I think so, and
rather than the constant attack. Right?
So here's what happens: we have pretty tight building and zoning rules. Developers want to build in these beautiful open spaces. It's hard to do it there, so they'll do an overlay, or they'll create a city, or they'll ask to be annexed, or they'll go to the state legislature and they'll create these different rules, and it does this. And then Margaret Olson, the attorney, has to defend those things. Right. Let's stop that. Let's get on the same page, and let's do what's best for the community, because we don't want to take this beautiful area between Colville and Wanship that right now are these gorgeous fields and are a critical watershed for the Weber River, which, guess what, ends up in the Salt Lake, and we don't want to turn that into a subdivision, right? So I think we can all agree on that, and I can advocate for that, I think, in a different way than a liberal Democrat could.
So tell me, we're almost out of time. So
darn it.
Yeah. So I'd like you to kind of make a pitch, because there are many issues you haven't discussed yet.
Right.
That I think are important to people in Summit County.
Right.
Why don't you just talk about a few of those that you feel passionate about?
The biggest one for me is open space. I kind of lead my campaign with that, and my personal commitment is evidence through, my wife and I bought about 260 acres of land that sits between Promontory and Silver Creek and Red Hawk subdivisions. It's gorgeous land. There's even a easement for a county road through there. So it'd be a great subdivision, right? Well, we worked with Summit Land Conservancy with no taxpayer money to turn that into a conservation easement. So no one will ever build on it. It's the easement's held by Summit Land Conservancy. It's part of the Weber watershed. That is really the forefront of what we do. When I talk to the Richens and the folks who own the 910 Ranch, they were over at my house yesterday, and all the old generational landowners there, the Oscathorpes, they don't want to see those lands built on, right? Their legacy is to preserve them. Your ranch is another good example. So I think there needs to be a way where we can protect those lands and make sure that we build on the legacy of those families who've been here for generations, and at the same time make it so that Summit County just doesn't become a bunch of rooftops, because people don't come to Summit County to see an urban area or a suburban area. They come there to see the outdoors and the mountains and the meadows. And I think we can do something with agritourism, building on things that have already started with, say, Ballerina Farms and, the cider, to actually make that gorgeous area shine for Utah, So, yeah, you can come ski, but look at all the agricultural things we have. Look at the outdoor activities that we have that are there during the summer. That would benefit our community in a big way in the entire state.
Yeah, very good. Appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been nice to have you, Ari Ioannides, and I guess you'd like to. Why don't you make a final pitch to the voters?
Final pitch.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not here to represent Republicans or Democrats. I'm not here to represent the east side or the west side. I'm here to bring people together. So unless you're the person who is not going to look at me because I'm a Republican, I urge you to do your research, look on my website at voteforari.com. I think you'll like what you see, and I'm going to work with you and represent everybody in Summit County.
Very good. Thank you. We'll see you guys next week.